Hello everyone, this is George Chiotis with another Action After Report, this time with respect to Scenario 9, the Cannes Strongpoint. So in this case I was playing the Germans and we were in fortifications, in bunkers actually, and we are trying to avoid surrender. And uh, by surrender, what is meant in this scenario is there's a special rule where if a German squad gets eliminated, the highest ranking German officer is supposed to pass a morale check. Otherwise, uh, the game is won by the Americans. My opponent set up in two places, here, and carefully advanced up this way. And on the other side of the board, he had his highest ranking leaders with formidable support weapons all the way on the west edge of the board, and these two support guns situated here, whereby he could direct fire anywhere along the ridge line here. On my end, I spread out my bunkers mostly on the highest elevation hexes on board 2, but I've also tried to predict where he would come from, and in so doing, I also put bunkers in these locations as well. I decided on a strategy where I would try and maximize the use of mines, um, and the strategy was to use two-factor uh, firepower for the mines, so I can spread them out over a large area. And I also tried not to put too many mines close to one another because with effective artillery fire, um, a KIA would just blow up the mine and eliminate it. Of course, my opponent did use a strategy that was quite effective in terms of first clearing the wire obstacles, but he incurred some mine attacks in the process, and he cleared most of the mines using this APV here. So this is the end of turn 1, how the situation looks like. Um, the artillery fire was mostly ineffective. Um, Here he did dash and put a demolition charge. However, if you put demolition charges on a bunker from outside their covered arc, you get a +5 modifier. So there wasn't much an effect here, but he did manage to score a morale check here and a morale check there. So on to the end of turn 2. This marker here denotes that he took over the bunker here, and eventually would also take the bunker here. However, my highest ranking German leader passed all morale checks. And I'm not too sure what these squads are doing here, but I'm supposing that he is trying to knock out this bunker once and for all. He did realize, although he wasn't allowed to inspect my stack, he correctly guessed that there was an engineer squad in there with LMGs. And he uncovered these mines here. However, he didn't manage to uncover those, and um, they remained hidden. There's also a slew of mines here with wire. These mines and this mine here eventually did exact a toll on my opponent, and he kept most of his forces in reserve, and he could afford to do so because with the HMG, the heavy machine gun here, he has a range of 20 hexes and a firepower of 8, so he can afford to stay behind and try and score um, a hit or a morale check on my units. And as you can see, most of these bunkers here have only a +3 modifier if fire comes through their covered arc. So with a -2 leader, it's only a +1. So going forward, I think I would play this scenario slightly differently. End of Allied turn 2. He also manages to score a morale check here, and these bunkers are out of commission. They've been captured by the American player. He is landing effective fire here. However, they were ineffective against the bunkers, and there was really no mines to block him other than over here and here. He brought this tank up the hill, but it was mostly used for clearing obstacles. And he eventually would try and use it in the other sense of the word, in terms of an attack, but we'll see what happens. So end of player, allied player two, actually German player two. Nothing much has changed. We're on to allied player three. So he marches in after the squad here with the MMG was broken. He managed to just waltz right in and eliminate him in close combat. Actually, what happened here, if I am correct, the MMG broke, which allowed him just to walk in the bunker and take it over. And on top of that, he was guessing that uh, my anti-tank gun was situated here with a 10-3 leader. So somehow he managed to bring his tank around, and I told him to stop at this point because I was about to um, fire on the tank here. At the same token, this engineer's attempt to take over the bunker failed, and this squad advancing here was annihilated by the mine, which was very discouraging to the player. Although he had taken over three of my, believe, seven bunkers, and now the engineer on this end also uh, is broken and without a leader to rally him. Um, so he's very discouraged. He's trying to bring up forces as well. I tried to fire here. It was mostly ineffective. Um, Here he was extremely discouraged by the fact that he couldn't. He discovered where the leader was with the AT gun, and it wasn't here. Um, However, he wasn't able to score a kill here at all. On to Axis player turn 3. As you can see, the units here were eliminated by using a very low die roll and very few fire factors. He tried to advance one of the priests. It got blown up in the mine here. Its crew survived, and so far I was counting a tally of 3 squads or so killed. So again, very discouraging for the player, the allied player. Another armored fighting vehicle got immobilized here, and the other discouraging item was that this priest, given only a movement factor of 14, would have a hard time reaching his covered arc. Um, and the tank here survived the AT gun attack, and in fact he fired back and eliminated the anti-tank gun. And again, he scored a desperation morale here. And basically, by the Allied turn 4, the end of turn 4, after the squad received gunfire, he had to undergo a morale check and failed the morale check, therefore eliminating him, and then that precipitated in the leader here, the 10 minus 3 leader, that now stands without an AT gun, alone with the crew, or I believe the crew was also eliminated, um, having to pass a morale check to see if he will surrender or not. And that's when I rolled two sixes, boxcars, and ended the game. So um, after all was said and done, um, the the Allied player did score moderate, did incur moderate casualties. It was not an easy game, and what precipitated in the loss was a bad die roll of 12. Now, there is a trick to winning this game that was disclosed by a close Facebook friend of mine called Alain Chabot, which stipulates that if you place these bunkers in such a manner that um, each covered arc faces the back of the other bunker, uh, it would be a very hard obstacle to break. However, that would be ahistorical. You would probably build bunkers with a line of sight down areas where you expect the enemy to appear. So that's what I did. I don't regret not doing the so-called cheat or the trick. Um, I wish I could have uh, did a better deployment of my mines, and perhaps also I would have rethought how the bunkers would have been placed. Obviously, employing the uh, the most fortified bunkers in areas where the enemy was bound to incur it as an obstacle and not be able to maneuver around it. Um, However, my initial strategy was far inferior to this one, which is essentially was to uh, put the bunkers on the high elevation hexes alone and one next to the other. Now, that had an advantage, and in hindsight, it probably would have been a good idea because the 82 millimeter and the 100 millimeter artillery fire, incurring the outside covered arc die roll modifier, uh, really had uh, very little effect on the troops inside the bunker. Um, I found the most devastating weapon that was effective against bunkers was the flamethrower, being shot through the covered arc, and that's something to think about for a future game. So I hope you enjoyed this after action report, and I hope soon to um, finish scenario 7 and give you more feedback on that. Have a great evening, everyone.